Before we had the technical difficulty, we were talking about the Mehdi because we were talking about the convergence of these different eschatological opinions, right? Islamically, in terms of Christianity, Judaism, and they converge onto this single point. So, what I asked you was about how Muslims will be able to recognize a Mehdi figure. And I don't think we had discussed the Mehdi prior, so you'll have to explain to the audience like who the Mehdi is and how Muslims will be able to identify this character, believe this person to be truly the Mehdi, and then follow them and then enter the fray with the rest of these forces.
Sure, yeah, this is very important because the Mahdi is supposed to be, it's not the Messiah. So Muslims and Christians agree the Messiah is Jesus Christ. But the Mahdi is a figure that comes before, right before the Messiah. And he's just a righteous Muslim leader. And he has certain characteristics that the Prophet ﷺ has described so that people will recognize who he is. But he is considered to be the first of the major signs because what do we mean by major sign versus minor signs? The Prophet ﷺ gave us a description of what is going to happen before the day of judgment, before the world is going to completely end. And there are minor signs like people are going to be generally more immoral. There's going to be more sexual deviance. People will fornicate in the streets. There's going to be a lack of trustworthiness. These are all minor signs. The building of tall buildings in competition that the Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith that the Bedouins of basically Arabia will compete with each other in building taller and taller buildings. This is something that we actually see. So these are the minor signs. Then the major signs are things like the coming of the Antichrist, the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, when he literally will come down from heaven on two angels. Things like Gog and Magog, or Ya'juj and Ma'juj, which are mentioned in the Quran and also in Hadith. These are the major signs, cataclysmic events, and the first of the major signs is Imam Mahdi, which is this righteous figure. And he has different characteristics. One of the characteristics is that he is not going to seek leadership. He's not going to try to gather people to follow him. He will be forced into a position of leadership. Like the Muslims will force him, and he just doesn't want it. He'll actually be fleeing away from leadership, but they force him into it. So that's one of the central characteristics of the Mahdi. And there are other signs of like who it is, but one of the signs is that there will even be a kind of voice, like a definitive voice that says this is the Mahdi. Now, whether that's authentic or not, I don't know, but that's one of the characteristics. But the point is that it'll be very clear cut that this person, something unprecedented in history, unprecedented where we haven't had a figure like that, and then there will be a figure like that. And Muslims will have a choice. Do I follow, what is the clear truth by following the Mahdi, or will I just sit it out? Will I just avoid, making the sacrifices that are required to follow a leader? And a lot of Muslims might think that, if I was in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course I'd follow the Prophet. Of course I'd be the best Sahabi. I'd be the best companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But would you, you have to ask yourself, would you really be willing to dedicate your life and put your family on the back burner, your wealth, your business, and sacrifice for the sake of Allah, for the sake of God, and follow a prophet? That's the kind of commitment that the Sahaba made, and that's what makes them the greatest generation. If we want to be counted as being great followers of Islam and servants of God, are we going to be in that position where we follow the Mahdi when it's clear to us that that person is the Imam Mahdi? There's a requirement that if you're a Muslim, you have to support him in the same way that if you were a Muslim in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you had to support him, you had to fight with him. In a similar way, there'll be that same requirement for Muslims. It'll be wajib. Who's going to actually do what's wajib, and who's going to turn their his or her back? That'll be the question that all Muslims at that time will have to face.
So what does the Mehdi do?
He's going to lead the Muslims to victory, military victory, basically establishing God's rule by taking over certain Muslim lands, because the understanding is that Muslim lands are going to be controlled by forces that are not going to be Muslim. It's the forces of disbelief or whatever. And the Mehdi is going to lead Muslims to take over, reconquer those areas and establish like a Muslim rulership.
And this is prior to the coming of the Messiah.
Yes, that's prior to the coming of Jesus Christ. So
Okay.
what's going to happen is, what the hadith describe, the exact timeline, there's going to be ikhtilaf. Scholars will disagree on what the exact timeline is, but there's like a general sense that Imam Mehdi is first. He's going to have a lot of success. There will be people who will attack the Mehdi because the Mehdi will be located in Mecca, and then there will be a great army that will come to attack the Mehdi, and then at that point, the earth will actually swallow that great army up. So you think that there's this dominant force that's going to come with, who knows what kind of weapons, artilleried force coming with their whatever they might have at that time, and you have a small ragtag team following the Mehdi. They're going to get crushed. They're going to get destroyed. But no, the earth will literally swallow up that army. And it's interesting because, what does that actually mean? When you look at a country like Arabia today, there are things like sinkholes. There are things like giant sinkholes that can open up, especially if you've been drilling underneath the earth for a long period of time. So Allahu Alam, only God knows what can happen. But these are the kinds of things that are described about the Mahdi and the end of times.
So you described potential modern weaponry like artillery. But my understanding, and obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, but from what I've heard is there'll be some sort of return to like ancient warfare. Is that during the Mehdi's time? Is that even true?
There are different opinions on that. Some say the view that you mentioned, that thing will return to more primitive technological period, and fighting will be done with spears and swords on horseback, etc. And some say no, it's going to be through using modern weaponry. Only Allah knows. But either way, like the sequence of events and what's really happening, like what the core of what's happening is the forces of belief and Islam versus the forces that want to wipe Islam off the face of the earth. So how that conflict takes place, it could be either way. I'm not sure like which opinion is correct, but the sequence is what is important, and this idea of an antichrist and a Messiah and the Mehdi, like these are the things that we're seeing actually start to materialize with what's happening with the red heifers, what's happening with the Al-Aqsa, and just the world opinion about people have a sense, like a tangible sense, like something is happening, like things are leading to a breaking point. What is that? And it's like people, even, I'm not just talking about Muslims, definitely Muslims, but even non-Muslims, it feels like, okay, something big is about to happen and we're just holding our breath. I don't know. Do you feel like that?
I do. I do. And I've been telling my friends for a long time, we're going to, for the rest of our lives, experience instability and chaos and tension. And I mostly view it that way just because of the rise of China and Russia and entering a multipolar world. You have, the collapse of the unipolar world, and you have these great forces that are going to be fighting very aggressively over what resources are left on Earth. And they're going to be competing for Africa and Asia. And so we've seen proxy wars. We're going to start to see more of those kinds of proxy wars. And sprinkled into this is religion and end of times. And, obviously Israel is playing a major role in this. I think they're literally the heart of this. Yeah, I definitely view it that way. So I want to talk a little bit more about this because I know this is going to be really interesting to people, but where is there cause for confusion? Because you have, and I know you're dealing off weak hadith, different opinions, interpretations, and then it's not very clear, but you have, within Islam itself, you'll have the Shia and Sunni, right, differing on who the Mahdi might be and how to agree upon that. Then you have the Christians who will decide who the Messiah actually is, who the Dajjal is, and then the Jews have their own interpretation about who the Dajjal will be, who the Messiah will be. So could you try to speculate, if you were to tell me what you think might happen, how it might go down, given all of these different converging groups and their interpretations, how might it happen?
I think that what could happen, Allahu Alam, is that, I don't know, maybe in the next 100 years, Muslims have suffered a lot of defeats, a lot of fracturing, a lot of loss of life, genocides, and oppression. And that will wake up the ummah. And we see that awakening happening right now as we speak. Muslims are waking up and realizing that this life is an illusion, that they've been deluding into buying into this idea of, the modern world order, and we have to be modernized, and we have to actually turn our back to religion in order to achieve prosperity. And now Muslims are realizing that that was all a lie, that when you turn your back to Islam and to Allah, that you will destroy yourself and you will actually suffer a great deal of loss by doing that. So they're waking up, and that awakening is going to cause, inshallah, a chain reaction of just more activity, more strength through iman and taqwa and all of these important values. Muslims are slowly going to get more united. And as that happens, there will be big changes. Like, there's a huge opportunity for Muslims, especially as these powers start to crumble, for Muslims to take a center role in defining the next 100 years. And it's really for us for the taking. It's for us to meet that challenge. And I think that awakening is actually happening. So if that happens, when that happens, there's another narration. I don't know if it's a narration or a saying from previous scholars, that when the Mehdi comes, the Mehdi is going to come to ummah of Mehdis. The Mehdi will come, like he is this great leader who will come to a community of great leaders. So that's why as Muslims, we can never be passive and say that, oh, well, let's just wait until the Mehdi comes. No, you have to change yourself, and you have to be a great person and strive for the best in terms of dunya and akhirah. And then Allah will bring the leader, and then Allah will bless you with someone to lead. And if you do the opposite, you turn your back on Allah, you don't care about deen, then you'll have oppressive leaders and you'll have terrible leaders that you'll be cursed with. So when that awakening happens, Muslims become stronger and stronger, then a Mahdi could come, and then that's the first of the major signs that will lead to a domino effect for everything else that comes after.
Trust nothing. No lies.